Hello, my name is Jonathan Martinez. I'm doing my paper today on John Marshall. John Marshall was recognized as one of the many great Chief Justice that we've had, but primarily as the first great Chief Justice that we've had. He was born on September 4th, 1755. As I said, he was considered one of the greatest Chief Justice to ever serve on the nation's highest court. His role in American history is still present to today. He was educated at home by his father, and he was sent off to school, but then eventually returned where he finished off his schooling at home. He was considered a very intelligent student or person. He became a lawyer at the age of 25, very successful early on, and took care of all of his cases. While taking care of his cases, he made a good impression with his neighbors and with others that he represented. So much so that he was a member of the Virginia House of Delegates. He became a great notable lawyer and was on his way to a successful career. He worked under President John Adams. He was offered the Attorney General's position by President George Washington, but declined as he wanted to stay home with his family and continue to practice law. When President Adams became president in approximately 1798, he was sent Marshall as one of the 3 delegates over to France. While in France, Marshall became very upset when he found out that France wanted to be paid, as well as he believed that they were trying to solicit bribery. When he came back, President Adams then appointed Marshall to Secretary of State. Marshall was in charge of all the foreign affairs, and it was not uncommon for Marshall to take over the government when President Adams was away. Shortly after being appointed that Secretary of State position, Marshall was appointed as the Chief Justice of the United States by President Adams. This occurred just before President Jefferson took office. President Jefferson and Marshall were distant cousins but had different views and positions in politics. Marshall, as well as political parties, were different. Marshall and Jefferson differed on many things, but one of the biggest things that it differed on would relate back to Marshall's position as a Chief Justice, and that was the interpretation of the Constitution. President Jefferson felt that the government's power needed to stay low, and therefore the Constitution should be interpreted strictly. Marshall believed in a strong central government and believed that the Constitution should not be interpreted as strict, allowing the government to become more powerful but to also interpret those laws. This was considered one of the possibly the biggest cases ever considered was the Marbury versus Madison in 1803. In that case, Marshall ruled in which him becoming very important as a precedent. His ruling declared that a law was unconstitutional, therefore setting a precedent giving the Supreme Court the power to declare laws unconstitutional. Because of this ruling, Marshall is a very prominent figure in American history and, of course, in the Chief Justice. As Chief Justice. With that, the way it affects in today's world, the biggest thing to relate into today is we are currently seeing issues with the Supreme Court and laws as 2017, ranging from police brutality and police laws being too strict to civil rights, people's decisions on what gender, what race, and so forth that they want to accept themselves as. So I think with his decision and his ability to set forth and say, hey, as a Supreme Court, we're going to be ruling some laws unconstitutional, this was huge. Because now, as Americans, we count on the Supreme Court at the highest level to try to assist us in, if we're having these complications with our own states, with our own government, we take it to them and hopefully get a better ruling. But most currently, we're seeing that Supreme Court's ruling on things, and even then, the states aren't agreeing with them. So I think it's these factors are becoming to be a big part again. And with Marshall, he set a precedence up front back in the early 1800s there that I think we're going to be seeing again. Hopefully, with other Chief Justices, they're going to be making some superior decisions. Thank you.